In today's video, I'm going to tell you the crazy story about when I was 31 and how I cashed in my 401k that was only at $22,000 and turned it into $175,000 over a few years. And this is a story which has a lot to do with why I am very strongly about investing in myself or investing in things that will make my money grow. But it also is why I am the way I am because of some of the successes I've had, but also there's a tragic ending to this as well. So if you've been kind of following the story of my other videos, you'll know that the situation I'm in today is still a recovery off of a lot of different things. But nonetheless, there was a very nice time where things worked out really well for a lot of the things I was doing. Now, this is back when I was 31 years old, and this is also a time when we were having the dot-com boom. And here's what I want to focus on right here. In this red section that you're seeing in this here, this is between the years of, I believe, 1998, 99, and 2000 when we had these big dips. But you're going to see this. This is what you'll see right before these three big crash days is actually a time frame of which we had a lot of boom years prior to that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of how my 401k grew. So I was working in retail for a drugstore company, and I was told that I need or should be investing in the company's 401k because they match. Some of the managers at the time were very adamant about telling us how it was important for us to be a good example for the other employees, so we should be putting in 401k. And I started making a little bit of money, meaning I went from like a $7 an hour salary up to $14 an hour salary, like overnight from a promotion. So at this point, I thought, well, I could put some money away. So I started putting a lot of money into my investments, into the 401k, and some of the other managers telling me how to do it. Now, these were the boom years, 97, 98, 99. This is the S&P 500, which a lot of them were in. Funds that actually funded the S&P. So you had a 33% gain in 97. In 1998, they had a 28% gain in their money. And of course, remember now, you're putting money in all the time as well. And then in 1999, there was another 20% gain. Now, at this point, I had a manager that said, you got to be putting in a lot of money. He had hundreds of thousands of dollars over 40 years of his career working for the company, putting his money away into this. And he was basically sitting really pretty. He was so happy with everything, the way it was running, saying, put your money into these funds. They're doing fantastic. You know, almost a can't lose type feeling. So at that point in 1999, I had about $40,000 already saved up. And that was rapid because I was dumping in a ton of money into it because I was told to, but also because I was making more than I ever made before. At $14 an hour, that was a lot of money for me at that time. Of course, coming out of a $6 an hour range, right? So at this 40,000, when 2000 hit, we had a 9% drop. And my account went to, now this is just without having the dollar cost averaging put in. I understand all that, but I saw my account go from 40,000 to 36,000. Well, I'm thinking, okay, that's not so bad. There was a lot of growth in the prior years. Okay, I can deal with that. Well, the next year we had another 11% drop. When that 11% drop hit, then I only had $32,000 in my account around there. Now I'm seeing from 40,000 to 32,000. That's a lot of money being lost all of a sudden. And of course, 2002 comes around and we have another 22% drop. Now at that point, my account goes from 32,000 only down to just under $25,000. And this is it. I'm like, what happened to the 40,000? Why is it so small? And I keep putting, it's like putting more money after bad money is how I started to feel. All right. Now, I saw some of these other managers who were telling me to get into it. They lost practically half their fund, maybe a little less than half. I mean, they got absolutely hammered. I saw these guys just absolutely dreading what happened. Now, of course, there was a comeback year after this 2002, but by then, 3 years of really bad years. And I'm seeing this and I'm starting to learn about how money starts to work. I highly recommend everybody read this book called The Richest Man in Babylon. It's by George S. Clason, and I'll have a link in the description below that'll take you to Amazon to pick it up. Or if you want to listen to the Audible version, I'll also have a link to the Audible version too. If you don't have audible.com account, you can actually sign up for one for free to get this book on Audible and listen to it. It can change your life. It's a story format about how this man worked money. And you'll see through my story, if you have read this, I'll kind of premise a little bit about it, that how I lost money along the way, but also gained it through wisdom and knowledge and how everything works. But I pretty much lived the richest man in Babylon while he was still alive, because I'm still in my phase of coming back out right now. But needless to say, at this point, at $24,000, that's over 16 or about $15,000 in losses. I'm like, that's it. I've had enough. I'm going to go ahead and do something else with my money to see if I can make it work for me. I had to withdraw with a penalty because I'm only 30 years old. After 401k, there was a 10%. I believe there was even actually a withholding out of that too. So I think I came out with a little under 22,000, maybe about $20,000. And I took that, and yes, I was like, is this dumb? I don't know. But it was time for me to go ahead and get ready to start investing into real estate. And this is why I said, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And here's what happened with that. So in April of 2003, I bought a rental for $78,000. Okay. And it only took me 14 months for me to turn that around and sell it for $122,000 later, which made me about $44,000 a profit. I already doubled my money just from that transaction over 1 year's time. And that was, to me, pretty amazing. Now, as you notice, I sold at June, but I also now bought another rental for $170,000. It's kind of an upgrade at that point. And then again, 13 months later, about a year later, I sold that one for $240,000. And along the time, both of these that I purchased were what's called Section 8 homes. So they already had renters in them when I bought them, and they were already cash flowing. There were some repairs along the way, I remember. I did actually end up increasing the rent a little over time while I had this, because I did so many repairs to the place that they were happy to have it done. So that little increase did help a lot. And of course, I didn't want to have debt, so I paid those off quite quickly, and I just had that extra $50 coming in. Then in November of 2004, we bought what's called a lease option. We bought a rental, but it was a lease option to a renter who was planning to buy it. And our agreement put together for this was that I would have $500 a month cash flow minimum. Whatever the mortgage was, he was going to pay $500 on top, but he really wanted the property. His credit was so bad. He said this is the only way he's going to be able to do it. He wanted to make sure the property didn't get sold to anybody else. So we signed a lease option agreement, and I put in the down payment, took some of this money, put it into the down payment to get this property, and I had no closing cost. He was very skilled, so he knew how to fix anything and everything in the house. He took care of all the repairs. He also took care of all the closing costs. So I only had to put in the down payment and get the mortgage. And about 2 years later, we did sell the property out and made a $50,000 profit along the way of $500 a month minimum cash flow. So that's an extra $12,000 that we came out with this property deal that was put together. Now we add this all up together. You know, we also bought a duplex along the way. This one we actually did sell 10 years later. We held on for it a long time because it was such a low value. All these properties today, though, are worth at least $200,000 each more had I kept them. So there's some of my mistakes I've already made along the way. You can already see that this is kind of a problematic thing. But with the money that came out of these properties, now this one here, I did split some among the family. I think about 15 to 20,000 was family invested in it, so they got a portion of it. So they got some of the profits that came off of that. But along the way, I took care of all the management of it. Along the way, in the end, we took a lot of that money, in fact, almost all of that money, and we put it into one big real estate investment that ended up losing it all. The market then crashed, completely flipped. At 2008 to 2010 is when we jumped into this deal, and it absolutely hammered us. And we had also, now, something you don't see here is that we also did do some refinances on a property that I owned. And it was because when I first bought my properties, they were up in the range of about 8 or 9% interest. And that's for owner occupied. It was really, really high when I bought it, but the property I bought was like 80,000 or 60,000. Right now, the property is selling for 410,000. So had I held, like I said, it was a really great deal at the time back then. And that 8% interest was so high. All of these along the way were at maybe 6 or 5% interest. So interest rates had come down. I refinanced my property to get a little bit of cash out, but also because my mortgage payments went down enormously. And along the way, with all of these that then ended up being sold, and then also leveraging my house for that big investment that I decided to do, because all of this were all wins, one after the other. I did not have any losses for years because the real estate market was so hot. And the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because, now again, one thing I want to make sure that I'm very clear that this is just my experience. This is not investment advice. This is not something I should recommend you do. This was actually kind of crazy now that I think about it. But it worked at the time, right? And I just got a little greedy with the last property that we decided to dump everything into it. And I ended up losing even my primary residence. And then we are now renters and we have no properties. And property values are so high right now, we are kind of turning around to see when the next value of the properties are going to drop so we can take advantage of it. Some people say it's not going to happen. I believe cycles do happen. We are just waiting for a huge pop in something soon. I look at patterns, and these patterns are kind of being thrown off a lot. But in the meantime, I just wanted to go ahead and tell you about our story that we have gone through of the investments that we've done by taking out time and time again and investing in ourselves and learning along the way. And that is why I would like today to say The Richest Man in Babylon changed my life. Another book that actually really changed my life was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Whether you like that guy or not, his concepts about money and how it works and making money work for you does make a huge difference. That's what kind of got me into this. Now, I also want to say Rich Dad Poor Dad will get you into a different mindset about money. But as you'll learn from concepts like this, he was not big on debt. I am not big on actually debt, using debt as well. This, I over leveraged myself at one point, and because once you actually go down the rabbit hole of controlling money using debt, you have to be careful if you lose control, if you don't have the experience on knowing how to handle it. And that is what happened in the 2008 financial meltdown. Is so many people were getting into debt to buy properties thinking that they could make money along the way. I mean, I got in before, while the rise was hot. By 2008, 2010, when people were like way going crazy into it, I was getting out a lot of these properties. 2007, I was out of this one, and we were out of these properties. We were also out of some other properties along the way that could have done even way better had we held on to them, because we had fixed mortgages on some of these too. But we also had some really poor mortgages, but the values were going up so fast. And we saw that happen just recently, right after the lockdowns. And now that the real estate values are coming back up, or have come back up, we are primed for another correction. And when that happens, I think everybody needs to know that if you're ready for it, that's when you can jump into it. So I would say, if at all possible right now, this is my waking up your dream. Start saving whatever you can. Start putting away, start educating yourself. Put away knowledge for things that are going to be ready for the next turnaround of anything. Learn some skills that will take advantage of whatever is going to be happening next. Things cannot sustain the way they are. That's just the way it is. Again, this is entertainment only, or an experience, a story. It's not actually telling you what you need to do or how you should do it. Or I would not recommend following what I did at all, only because I ended up getting burned anyway, but it's because it's a different market than it was back then. This is just one thing I want to share. Some of you might be thinking I'm just the biggest idiot in the world, which is completely fine, because my goal is, if you think I'm an idiot because I did something wrong, which means I maybe protected you from doing your own mistake in the future, which is kind of the goal of this channel, is to educate people on what not to do, because I have come out of recovery after 50 years of making mistakes, some good, some bad. Now, don't get me wrong. I am dying to get back into the real estate market. I know how real estate works, and I know how to avoid big mistakes. That's the thing. I know how I made the big mistake. I know how to avoid it, but I also know what worked and how to look at certain things. So I'm ready for the next jump in for us to get an opportunity to get into. That's why one of the reasons I'm building this channel, or actually taking a leap of faith in building this business, because as time goes on, that's going to be the next opportunity, is to have a foundation of something that can support our investments moving forward. I hope this has been helpful. I would love to hear your comments on what you guys think about that. Was this too hard to actually understand? I think it seemed easy enough. But, I do have a 401k that's quite large now because I've been dumping back into it. I would not cash it in anymore because in 8 years or so, I'd actually be able to cash it without penalties. But I also do have other savings that we put aside. We've been able to do that, but we are now trying to sustain ourselves to hold on to what we can and make as much as we can so that we can invest in the next real estate turnaround when hopefully that happens soon, but we will have to see. But hopefully this has been helpful. Again, please comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you guys have done in the past. Have you made big mistakes that you could, educate others on? I'd love to hear those stories as well. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, and if this has been helpful, I hope I have earned your subscription tonight. And I will see you tomorrow in the next video.